Hello, I am C-3PO, and I believe the storyteller is ready, so let us begin.
All right, let's try this again. Okay, do you have the wire?
We start the episode off with the Razor Crest not doing so well, and Din is inside, and he's getting Baby Yoda to help him do some rewiring in some tight spaces. It's a very cute, funny little scene. The Razor Crest is not going to make it to Corpus, so they decide to stop by Navarro for repairs on the way because it's a friendly area. They meet up with Greef and Cara, and then Greef offers to fix Mando's ship in exchange for his help as they drop Baby Yoda off at a schoolhouse that's in the place of the old cantina on Navarro.
So in typical Mandalorian, frankly, season 2 fashion, we have to go off and do something kind of aggressive. The episode is called The Siege. Certainly that's what's happening. They've got this old Imperial territory that they need to reclaim. So they pick up the Mythrol along the way, who I guess is now working for Greef Karga. This is a guy who has personal history with our Mando, and they head to, you might have to help me, I forget exactly the name of the place they go, but there's lots of stormtroopers there. They break in, and it turns out there is a sort of lab facility where they're headed. It's not just abandoned as they previously had thought.
Absolutely. So meanwhile, at this time, Baby Yoda is in school, but he's not paying attention to class. He's paying attention to the cookies that are next door at this little kid. He asks for some cookies. The kid says no. Baby Yoda decides this is the right time to use the Force for the first time this season, and I'm going to take those cookies. And so he takes the cookies, and he's not really that sorry, and it's an adorable moment. Meanwhile, back on this Imperial base that Greef had said was abandoned, the Mythrol had to walk out on kind of a precarious ledge and essentially, I guess, override and overpower the reactor so that it was going to explode the base. On their way out, they do discover this lab, and while they're in the lab, they see these tanks which have alien-like creatures, early Snokes, very likely. We'll get into this for sure. And then they also uncover a holo that confirms that Gideon has survived and that the child had been kidnapped for his high M count in the blood, and that the transfusions they were currently working on were not successful, and that they had run out of the child's blood. So Din goes back to rescue the child after he hears this kind of terrifying news. Our heroes try to escape, and they get in a transport, and Greef, Cara, and the Mythrol are chased by speeder bikes over the edge. And it's a very cool scene.
It's really cool, and it's a little bit clumsy, but they manage to make the successful breakaway. They get back to their hometown, and they meet up with Mando once again, and it's kind of like, hey, nice knowing you. Can I buy you a drink? No, I've got a more important business to tend to, and we'll probably reunite further down the road because, again, formulaically, that seems to be what's going on. I apologize. You did a fabulous job recapping, and I there's a recap component to both of the podcasts I'm a part of now, and I seem to be I'm degrading as a recapper of entertainment. I seem to have like a very scattered approach to well, my words are not with me today either, apparently, but recapping what we've been consuming.
I struggled on the last couple ones, so I went ahead and I actually looked through and made sure I wrote some notes on this one because there were so many things going on. Essentially, there were the TIE fighters that chased them down after they got out the speeder bikes, and Mando came in the Razor Crest with Baby Yoda to save the day. Baby Yoda had that cute like arms up in the air, and then he puked, and then we cut to Moff Gideon. And that's where we realized that Moff Gideon has had a spy who was working in Greef Karga's mechanical crew and ultimately planted a tracker on the Razor Crest. And then we see that he also has an elite crew of dark troopers, and that's another thing that we'll talk about more right now, probably.
Yeah, that's what the TIE fighter sequence is significant for. The fact that Moff Gideon is clearly like prepared this elite crew of pilots that are going to be a little bit harder to evade than your typical stormtrooper. Because in this episode in particular, stormtroopers who have a long history of being hapless are especially disposable. Stormtroopers are like, they don't land a single fire on a hero in this episode, even though Cara Dune is sleeveless. And then the two, yes, that's true, but like, I mean, only because he's walking. He's walking at them. And also, like, the two scout troopers who we very recently on this podcast were like, hey, they're the best. I mean, like, the two of them come down the hill clearly those speeders are not meant for the hill. They just crash into each other, and they're taken care of without any effort by our heroes. And so, in particular, this episode, stormtroopers seem like idiots. I don't know if that's to contrast the precision and the menace of the dark troopers, but you're right. Moff Gideon is clearly putting together a crew that's somewhat more frightening.
Yeah, so I'm going to go through my takebacks for the episode because they're very, very few. There's those scots colliding.
Yeah.
I didn't like that. I mean, that was just, yes, we're seeing the incompetence, but it's maybe a little too much. And then the fact that the troopers were so inaccurate, and then the TIEs still couldn't even catch up through them with the caves, although there was some pretty good fire done by Grief Karga. And then, of course, the Mythrol being back, although he wasn't as bad as last time at all. But the worst thing about him is the fact that he doesn't have a name. The fact that they're still not giving people friggin' names.
Still, I know.
But so that's just very frustrating. And then there's also my only other take back is the line that Carson says to Kara at the very end. Did you lose anyone?
Me too.
I lost everyone.
It's a dumb question.
It is a dumb question.
Although it's fine. I find it interesting.
Kind of hit through a handful of the takebacks, so I had to mention them there. But.
No, that's okay. And I do find it compelling for Kara's story that she is from Alderaan, because it's good that we revisit that and kind of close that chapter because it's like a relatively unfinished story, the story of Alderaan in greater Star Wars. And I'm looking for reasons to also ground Cara Dune, who I'm not aiming to dislike, although I don't really get anything rich from her, and I'm not alone in that as a Star Wars fan, which we've talked about lately. We can talk about it again. In general, as long as we're taking stuff back about this episode, it seems like the general impression of this episode is that it was yet another good one, but that in itself is almost a take back for me because it's so formulaic. I love Mandalorian. I like that it's a serialized show. I'm okay with it not being as fluid, a singular story as other high epic dramas. They're doing that deliberately. Frankly, in the tradition of Star Trek, but we are starting to fall into a bit of a cookie cutter situation here with, hey, person I know sort of, can you help me with this thing? Well, only if you help us with this thing first, and we have to park the child somewhere and go do this violent singular mission, which in this particular instance has even less to do with the greater story than normal, save, of course, the fact that we have Baby Yoda being harvested, and they were able to expose that for us.
I'm going to disagree with that one. I actually think this one, I would agree with a lot of the points, of course, on the serialized nature of it, and it's kind of like the adventure of the week, of course, and definitely the trading help for help is something that's definitely repetitive. But these are repeated characters, so I think that is important to show that he is building friendships, and that these aren't necessarily the new people of the week again. These are some people that he has established a relationship with, which he's maybe not that great at. But I actually think this episode blows the entire fucking series wide open.
Okay.
I think it changes. I think it totally changes the game as to what the series could be and what the series will be, and potentially what Star Wars has coming up for it. I think the next episode is when people are going to realize that potentially. I think the Dark Troopers. Let's maybe get into them first.
Okay.
Because there's so many things that we can talk about. Let me just see if I've got some notes on here somewhere on the Dark Troopers.
Well, and by the way, as long as we're picking apart the formulaic nature of the show, it's not unlike the first season in that the first few episodes established that we've got mini adventures to experience before the greater adventure kind of takes hold in the second half. And now we've completed the first half of season 2. So you're probably right. In episode 5, we'll probably start to see more of the bigger picture come together, whether that involves Ahsoka or a face-to-face with Gideon, or like Jedi's Baby Yoda story furthering, Mando's story furthering, a return from Bo-Katan. Like I think we're probably going to see some stuff come together, and it's going to get really exciting in the second half. But in particular, by episode 4 of this formula, I'm getting a little winded.
Fair enough. I will say, though, that everything we have seen from the trailer has now been shown.
That's cool.
So everything you're going to see in these next 4 episodes is going to be completely new and fresh for you. And so in that regard, it's going to catch you very much off guard. Ahsoka will be in the next episode. It's written and directed by Dave Filoni. There's a 99.9% chance she will be in the next episode.
Sure, good guess.
It's rumored to be between 45 and 58 minutes long, so it's going to be a good length episode. Moff Gideon, or Giancarlo Esposito, has said in the past that he uses the darksaber this season, and he gets into a lightsaber fight, essentially. And so we're going to see him fight Ahsoka next episode.
That's it. I love that.
Now you want, like, I can keep blowing this open more. Let's actually, let's go with the Dark Troopers. The Dark Troopers. Specifically, they are Dark Troopers. It's revealed in the audio description for the visually impaired that you can access on Disney+.
What is a Dark Trooper?
The Dark Trooper is from Legends, and it's done in 3 phases. So we don't know exactly how it's going to be replicated or reintroduced for canon. But the Dark Trooper was introduced in the Dark Forces video game and through a few other different Legends materials. And it was essentially, it was an elite stormtrooper class that was infused with force sensitivity. And then they also had an elite battle droid class that was made out of lightsaber-proof metal called Frick. Now, I think we can probably shape this very slightly and reveal that what did the Empire do with all the Beskar they harvested from Mandalore? That's Moff Gideon's new Dark Trooper fleet. So we've been talking about how easy these stormtroopers are to dispose of. Well, now we're switching back to droids from the Clone Wars, and we're going with ones made from Beskar. Good luck, all you Mandalorians. Good luck, anyone trying to take these people out. Yeah. On top of that, we've also now learned about the experimentation with potential force sensitivity and trying to take force-infused blood with high M counts, high midi-chlorian counts, and using them for another purpose. That's another phase of the Dark Trooper program. Is there a life form inside these battle droids? We don't get to see them very close. They look very clearly to be battle droids, like a cross between a battle droid and K2SO, but made from Beskar. Wow. So that's terrifying.
Yeah.
And then if you do potentially there is a sentient brain though in there that has force sensitivity. Maybe not. Maybe that's for something completely different. But that's a really interesting plot. Now let's go back to Moff Gideon's motives a little bit more. What does he want with all of this? The Dr. Pershing said, we won't fail you again, Moff Gideon. So he's clearly leading the project as well to deal with the force sensitivity. You have no idea how much I want this, or whatever he said from last season. So bluntly, he has the darksaber. Does he want to be force sensitive himself? There is a volunteer who is the volunteer that they don't want to kill. Dr. Pershing says specifically in this episode, I highly doubt that we'll find a donor with a higher M count, though. I fear that the volunteer will meet the same regrettable fate if we proceed with the transfusion. So they don't want to kill the volunteer. So the volunteer potentially is Gideon, or potentially is Palpatine, or potentially is Snoke, or potentially is someone else. I have another theory on who that could be, but that's another thing to get to as well. So you have a question mark on your face. There's so many things that this could be. It's just blowing so many story potentials out there, and it's making me really excited for what's to come.
You raised a lot of questions. One, first and foremost, when he said, I highly doubt we'll find someone with a higher midi-chlorian count, I thought he was talking about Baby Yoda, because he is the doctor who rescued Baby Yoda. So, that's not the volunteer that he's discussing.
No, they're talking about, that was, unfortunately, there was 2 quotes that I had just had next to each other. They weren't necessarily said one after the other.
Okay.
But no, he was referring to the donor, which was Baby Yoda. Mm-hmm. But they were only, and this is another really interesting thing, which makes me believe, I think what I know is going to happen in the next episode. And so if I'm right, and I saw this theorized one other place as well, and that they specifically said he's too small. They couldn't harvest enough blood.
Right.
The next episode's called The Jedi. The next episode, we're getting Ahsoka. Ahsoka is going to sacrifice herself, get captured by the Empire so that Din and Baby Yoda can get away.
Whoa.
Who has a really high M count and a lot more blood that they can repeatedly harvest for testing.
Sure,
Ahsoka Tano will work.
But to what end? Like, when you say sacrifice, is she going to die at the hands of the new Emperor?
I don't think so. I think that gives us a whole another season with a main plot of we now need to rescue the Jedi. And then Ahsoka is going to probably at the end of that season say, like, okay, now we're going to need to learn more. And then this goes to another theory that leads me to believe that I think they're going to learn about the species to realize that it's more like a frog than we've all been realizing. Yoda was compared to a frog a lot when he was first introduced. And there's been frogs in this season.
Yeah.
And he's been eating a lot in this season. So that leads me to believe two different things. We also talked about how different species age differently. What do frogs do? They age in cycles. They age with like tadpoles, and then like they have clear cycles. They're like Pokemon. They evolve.
Yeah.
And so it leads me to believe that Yoda taught for 800 years and he died at 900 years old. So he was able to train Jedi at 100 years old. Baby Yoda is 50 years old. So in the next 50 years, Baby Yoda should become a full adult.
You're right. He should kind of evolve up. He should level up.
So that means Din needs to raise him to become a sentient adult for the next 20 to 30 years, in which case, at that point, he will evolve to be a little bit more of a sentient being, and then can get shipped off to Rey. When Din is an old man, and then thus Baby Yoda can grow out his life and be a Jedi, but he will not be able to do that for another potentially 20, 30, 40, 50 years. He's so hungry, and the frog comparisons, it just leads me to believe that, and we also need to find a way for Baby Yoda to stay with Din. It just doesn't make sense he's not going to hand him off.
No.
And so these all kind of ideas and if none of these things happen, that's totally fine. Although I'm not happy with Baby Yoda just leaving and him and Din going different ways. I don't like that.
No, but I could see a world where a few more seasons into the show, if they want to wrap it up, Din dies at the end of The Mandalorian. I
could see that too.
Especially sacrificially in service of his new creed, which is Baby Yoda and the friends we made along the way, or Grief Kargas or whatever. He dies heroically. Baby Yoda's not going to die in this series, but it would be, you and I are the only ones who talk about this movie potentially, but it would be so great if the new evolution of Baby Yoda and Rey could be episode 10. Or
Absolutely.
Or Finn or whatever. Like, I definitely want to see those two stories converge. Now, I also am crazy about the idea of Moff Gideon being Sith obsessive or being Force obsessive. I'm not convinced he already isn't at least a little bit Force sensitive. It's very possible.
He very well could be.
But he's wearing armor in this episode, which is definitely Darth Vader-y. And these new Dark Troopers are also Darth Vader-y. He desperately wants to have a lightsaber, which is also the dark saber. And he is chasing after Baby Yoda, which granted everybody is, and maybe also Ahsoka. This is something that we had in Kylo Ren as well. This guy who was just like obsessed with the lore of being a part of and also preserving this tradition of the dark side of the Force. But I'm not going to disparage Kylo Ren, who is among the best characters in all of Star Wars, but this is kind of a different version of the same thing, and it's equally interesting to me.
Yeah, it's done in a very, very different way. Sorry, my rabbits are making a bit of noise.
Well, and Moff Gideon's more sophisticated than Kylo Ren.
Absolutely. And we also don't exactly know. Like, is he one of the Allegiant Moffs, like Allegiant General Pride was?
Right.
Is he currently working for Palpatine? Is he currently working for Palpatine but doesn't know it? Is he currently just trying to pick up the pieces to lead whatever he can that's remaining of the Empire? And so, like, is he just trying to dominate his sector? Giancarlo Esposito, he gave out some more interesting little tidbits and nuggets in an interview recently that leads me to believe he reports to someone. Mm-hmm. And so with the Snoke in like stuff in this episode, it leads me to believe it's likely Palpatine, and we're connecting things back more in that way, akin to what was done at the Clone Wars and making a lot of things make more sense. Let's talk about the Snoke thing. Tanks of Snokes.
Well, let's do that. Are we sure that those were tanks of Snokes? Because obviously it seemed like there was a cloning thing happening here.
We don't know necessarily if it's cloning. Snoke himself was a strand cast, as far as we know in canon, which just means that he wasn't a clone, but he was grown the same way a clone would be, just not from someone else's DNA, just from other shit. And like potentially in the case of Baby Yoda, like the blood of Baby Yoda and a whole bunch of other things. Maybe that's how Snoke was grown. They play Snoke's music, which is the same music that they played in the Opera House, which led people to believe that it was Plagueis. So it could just be dark side music.
Okay.
And the real one that makes me think it's Snoke is the fact that you can see the heads, and the heads have the same divot and crack that Snoke has.
Yes.
And so that's what makes me think. And Carl Weathers even talked about it. And I don't know whether, like, I only read the words, so I couldn't gauge the tone, but he either confirmed that they're supposed to be early versions of Snoke, or he was joking about that being a clear, like, tease that the audience is supposed to think. So he mentioned Snoke in an interview about that, referencing that scene. I just don't know what his tone was.
So definitely possible that this volunteer that you're discussing is either Snoke or Palpatine or some variation of that person is donating his tremendous force power.
Very possible. Or one other total wild, wacky theory that's just fun and that's getting me excited about Star Wars because it's so out there. This one I've not seen anywhere, but it's the kind of shit that is so annoying. Like, this is the kind of thing that you would have seen a few years ago and was the worst kind of theory a person could have ever had. And maybe, just maybe, it could come back and make sense. Just maybe. Boba Fett.
Boba Fett.
Boba Fett. What did his father do? His father was the volunteer for a clone army.
Yep.
Maybe Boba Fett wants to follow in his father's footsteps. It wouldn't be the first time.
Nope.
And on top of that, last time we saw him, he had no hair on him, and he had some cuts on his head, and he was bald, and I've said since the beginning, I think Moff Gideon was going to hire Boba Fett to track down Din. I think that's still the case. And what are we getting now? We're getting a Boba Fett miniseries that takes place between Return of the Jedi and Mando Season 2.
Do we know that for sure?
It's almost a slam dunk. The rumors have come out fast and steady from positive sources, and apparently it's something that after they reviewed Mando Season 2 internally, they greenlit, and people started to leak it as soon as episode 1 of this season happened.
But this is, as cool as this idea is, now I feel like it belongs in this show. Why splinter it off into its own property? It should be a part of this. This is the Mandalorian. And that's why it's a great idea to incorporate Boba Fett into the central villainy of this show. Why create a whole other branch?
It's a mini series, and the rumor, the heavy rumor, is that it's between Return of the Jedi and Mando Season 2. And so in that same capacity, picture the Cobb Vanth flashback that we get, but for like 4 to 6 episodes.
Okay.
And people will really want that. People
Sure.
will. And so I'm okay with that. And especially if it leads to Boba Fett coming back into this. And now I don't think Boba Fett is Snoke, but at the same time, why the fuck not, in the certain way of making things rhyme and are consistent? And all those Snoke theories out there, they have to get a body from something. I don't know. It's stupid and not a thing, but it's just fun to get the mind exploring and all these different pathways that we now have opened up. And so while the episode itself, I agree with you on a lot of accounts, I felt like it opened so many doors for the series and for Star Wars. And I think it's almost a slam dunk. We're getting an Ahsoka show if people like Rosario Dawson. And so, like, it's I think going to domino from here, and it gets me really excited.
Well, and alternatively, you can have both of those things without it meaning that Snoke's body was in fact Boba Fett's body, which was in fact Jango Fett's body. Like, two things can be true. Like, we don't know for sure that in those tanks it was Snoke. Yes, there's a similarity, but it could have just been Boba Fett's body.
Yeah, sure. Exactly. It could have been so many different things. And like I said, those could be, like, they looked smaller. So maybe they're the little, like, an alien thing that goes inside the Dark Trooper itself.
Interesting to see
so
Dr.
there's lots of possibles.
Interesting to see Dr. Pershing again. I wasn't sure if we in fact would. I find it interesting also that, like, he still has this allegiance to the evil side, which obviously he was, like, morally compromised when we first met him, but we were led to believe when we left him that he actually had, like, a streak of heroism in him, or at least that's how he spun it himself. Like, no, I know we're not pals, but trust me, I actually saved this child's life. Don't kill me. And that is technically true, but he's also maybe one of the top dogs owned by one of the most evil guys in the galaxy.
I see him as a pushover where Galen Erso had the strongest backbone in the galaxy.
I see
that very much as the case. He's a very smart man who was taken in by the Empire, probably, like, he did his university at whatever Imperial University and has just been working for Moff Gideon, just has no way out, but is too good at his job to be let out. That's kind of the way I see it. He at the end is, I won't fail you again, Moff Gideon. I see fear.
Yeah.
I see him as almost a bit of a prisoner. because he did save the child in that regard. But yeah, he's also an imp, so at the same time, you don't know.
Just to bounce back on your theory about Baby Yoda's aging process, such a good observation how much he is eating in this season. That feels so entirely deliberate, and interesting that they made such a hubbub with the controversy about him eating the eggs, especially if there's like a frog metaphor in there. But it's not just that. It's the eating of the chowder. It's the slurping of the soup at the starting of this episode. And interesting also that Mando takes off his helmet just like in a minimal way.
Cute.
It was cute. And also Baby Yoda kind of gives him a look as if to suggest like it's pretty special even for him to see the mask come off. And then, of course, the macaron sequence, which is
oh my god, it's
adorable. I listed this kid in my take back not just because he's rude to Baby Yoda, but because of how disgustingly piggish he is with eating those cookies. I don't need macaron ASMR from this chubby little kid. I don't.
Okay, that's a little mean.
I look. He asked for it.
I don't know. He was good. He acted well. It's pretty hard to be like a bad. He Jason Sudeikis. This like he didn't punch Baby Yoda, but he refused him a cookie after like a little, and just like the little reach out with his little hand. It was so adorable.
It is cute.
But at the same time, Baby Yoda got his cookies.
Yep, he did.
He wins in the end, and the raising his hands and the Razor Crest in Love and Life, and then the puke and Mando wiping it up with the cape. It's just so cute.
I mean, it's such a dad moment to like have to wipe up the spittle while also keeping your eyes on the road. It's just a glorious image.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I have some onboard maintenance I got to take care of.
I know. Now, I also thought narratively it was an interesting choice to have Mando take a back seat in the final act of the episode. He kind of like, he GTFOs, and we're just left with the remaining three to do the getaway, which is exciting. And I really like Grief. My only issue is that I only like Grief. Of those three, the other two I feel nothing for.
Kara, it's a tough one because I don't like Kara that much, and at the same time, Gina Carano is really fucking annoying in real life. Yeah. So it's something that maybe just have her go off with the rebellion or the New Republic and be a space cop with Carson Teva or something.
And then when they meet up with Mando again, major Buzz Lightyear, This Is Falling with Style sequence where the music comes up and it's like really glorious. And they're like, hey, that's our hero. We needed him just in the nick of time, which is great, actually, because we've talked recently on the pod about how somebody's always flying in at the last minute to save his butt. And he gets to be that guy for a change.
I know, it really worked in that way because we didn't just stay with him and we stayed with these other characters. I agree. Grief was great in the tank. A lot of great face acting from Carl Weathers, just in terms of like the way he was thinking, what he couldn't find, the scout trooper that he needed to take out, and the satisfaction when he just like blows him the fuck up point blank. It's really great. And also it's cool the way they decide to take evasive maneuvers in the tunnels by shooting the walls more than trying to shoot the ties, just to create rubble. And I guess that makes it easier to get away. I don't want the Mythrol back, but it's also, I'm getting ridiculously fucking sick and tired of the extremely anti-Star Wars thing of not giving characters names.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Just because you want them to know he's a Mythrol, great. We know he's a fucking Mythrol.
Got it.
And it's like, and if people cared, they would have looked it up like I would have after the episode.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if there's been a few other Mythrols in Star Wars. I would have had to look it up. But you know what? I'd rather know that the guy's name is like Kevin or like Jukalu or
Samantha,
whatever.
Yeah, no, and there's such a long tradition of Star Wars being over backstoried, and I know I prefer that. And like you're right, we now know that he's a Mythrol. That is like a household name at this point in the context of Mando, and he's been given so much personality. Frankly, I'm not crazy about that personality, but if he's going to have this much character, he needs to have more individuality than just speak for all of the Mythrols.
Yeah, I completely agree. It doesn't make any sense. It's just like you said, it goes against what makes sense in Star Wars. Wilro Hood, that's the character name of the guy who carries the fucking ice cream maker in the background of Empire. That's the name of, they had an action figure for him.
Right.
People bought the action figure with the character name, and they got this thing that they didn't even know was a safe until the Mandalorian started. They explained that part. That character had a name, but you have a guy who's been in a couple episodes and then like a supporting character in large sequences without a name. It doesn't make. And like when Cobb Vanth calls the bartender a weak way,
Right?
And in the first, no, give him. You guys knew each other 6 years prior. You guys are at the bar together at the fall of Death Star 2.
Speaking of takebacks, another character that Mando hasn't given a name or an action figure to is Gene's t-shirt guy.
I know. Well, actually, they did. It was actually quite funny. A guy did make like a Kenner action figure box in Photoshop of the Gene's t-shirt guy.
There's a Lego set as well.
Oh, amazing. He actually has a Wikipedia page now, I believe.
So this is a funny thing that you have to be a real eagle eye Mando viewer to catch.
I didn't see it.
I saw it in a still after the fact, but in the similar vein to the Star Wars, the Starbucks cup in Game of Thrones, there's a crew member visible in one of the scenes in this episode, and it's just so quick. And it's honestly just kind of a neat thing because you never see this kind of a mistake in Star Wars.
Yeah, and it's just his wristwatch and one of his legs.
Yeah.
But it's everybody was kind of chuckling, and it'll be gone in a day or two, I assume. It was not gone today. I did take another watch today of the episode, and it today was the first time I saw him in the episode. So
character who does have a name, who we really like, is Carl Weathers' Grief Karga, who he directed this episode, did a fine job.
Yeah.
He has kind of an updated look in this episode, which I love. One of my favorite things about it, he's got like a whiter beard. He's got nicer duds. I think
he's getting back to his role as a magistrate. He's cleaning up the town.
Right, and he has also a very cute interaction with Baby Yoda. Like if you remember at first, like he was kind of wary of Baby Yoda in season 1, and now he like thinks he's the cutest little thing. And they have
you come here, little one. Has Mando been taking good care of you? Have you been taking good care of him? Yeah. He said yeah.
Yeah, it's very sweet.
Yeah, a very grandpa moment, and he was great in the episode. And I like the fact that Kara is like the marshal in that area, and it also shows that some serious time has passed.
Yes,
because they've been together for several months since they left this, and they had to travel without their hyperdrive last couple episodes, so It makes some sense as well that took a while.
The only other like highlight that I wanted to bring up is you had mentioned Carson Teva. Is that his name? Kim's Convenience?
Yeah.
I really like if they're going to stick with this idea of there being like a cops I just mean like a police officer who's kind of like distant on our gunslinger's trail all the way through this. Like I think that's a perfect role for him.
I think it's great. And I think like he knows that there's something going on. He sees that the First Order, there's something weird, and that people in the core worlds don't believe him. But I think that's really great. There's so many things that are connecting the original trilogy timeline to the sequel trilogy timeline. And I think he's a really great character for that. I love the guy, Paul something. But he's such a good Star Wars fan, and he just feels like he fits right in the galaxy far, far away. And so It was nice to see him back. And also, Trapper Wolf was there because both X-Wings were there. He was just, I guess, interviewing somebody else.
Any quotes you wanted to highlight? It's not a super quotable episode.
No, it wasn't. But there was a couple things from Din. No, put the blue one back. No, hold them apart. Are you okay? Like that was a really cute scene with the wiring. I absolutely love that.
Kara says to Carson, she says, "I'm not a joiner, Blue." I kind of think that's like got a little bit of a catchiness to it.
I did too, but I don't know why she calls him Blue.
I don't know.
Like, is it supposed to be a reference to like cops? Because sorry, clearly the cops wear orange.
Well, is he not? Is he not
the previous era white?
Is he not possibly Blue Leader?
Maybe he was part of Blue Squadron.
Yeah.
Good thinking. Very good thinking. How's my credit around here?
Yeah. That could be a good episode title. You'll be rewarded in the new era. That just kind of like random paper pusher in the end says to Dr. Pershing.
How about the front door?
Oh, yeah. Good. Yeah, that's really good too. I highly doubt we'll have a donor with a higher M count. It's very curious. I mean, it's like it's nice. It's nicely utilized because midi-chlorians have this kind of sordid past in Star Wars, but like we might as well lean into it, and everybody knows what an M count is without having to know explicitly what an M count is.
Yeah, exactly. I thought that was a really great way of doing it, and in particular, not saying midichlorians, but still unites all the trilogies together, which is really great.
When the lava tide comes in, give us a holler, we'll drop you a rope.
Yeah, I thought that was a really good one.
Yeah.
Or I leave you out here in the lava flats to walk home with whatever's left in your humidity vest. You park your gills right there until I say otherwise. There's no guardrail on this.
That felt a little bit to me like a meta reference to Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It was a great reference to that point. And also the many times, I mean, friggin' Han Solo falling off. There's a lot of areas that need guardrails in Star Wars.
Yeah, very true. Trivia? Do you want to do some trivia questions?
Yeah, let's do some trivia.
All right, this is easy. How many years of a life debt does the Mythrol owe Grief Karga at the beginning of the episode, and how many does he owe him at the end of the episode?
350 at the start and 220 at the end, right?
Correct, yes. He takes 100 years off at first and then another 30.
Yeah, for parking at the front door.
That's right.
How many scouts go after our heroes on speeder bikes?
Is it? It's more than 4. I'm gonna say 6.
Ooh, 5.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say it's more than 4 and less than 6, but I thought maybe I missed one.
Indeed,
it was. Yeah. Okay. Which of the 5 major trade routes in the galaxy is identified by the student in class?
The student in class, the Hydian Way?
It is the Hydian Way. The droid teacher mentions the Corellian Run.
The Corellian Run, yeah.
Yeah.
I did some look on that as well. Let me scroll down.
There are 5 in total, and there are 2 of them that are named Corellian. There's another one that's the Corellian.
The Corellian trade spine, the Perlemian trade route, and the Rima trade route.
Okay.
What species was the mechanic that spies on Din and reports to the Empire?
I don't know, but there was just because we've spent so little time with this character and we've been talking about him anyway for the last 11 months or so, there was a part of me that briefly wondered if he was going to be Ochi of Bastoon, and then it wasn't, because I couldn't picture the guy, but that would have been kind of good if he had if he turned up in Mando at some point.
Yeah, maybe if we get some really Sithy stuff, if any more Snoke shit comes up where you've got they break into a facility and find more really dark sidey stuff, because I think I want Oshi, but at the same time, when does Oshi die? Oshi wouldn't die for another 9 years probably.
Yeah, he could overlap potentially
9 to 10 years, so I think we're fine with that.
Yeah, but I don't know what the species of this guy is.
Okay, well, I was going to ask if you could guess the planet, but you probably wouldn't remember. Mimban? Do you remember Mimban?
No.
He's Mimbanese. Mimban was used in Solo. It's where they meet, where Han meets Beckett. And Mimban was also the location of Splinter of the Mind's Eye, which was the novel sequel to New Hope.
Oh, right. Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's a mud planet.
Yeah.
And they all wear helmets in Solo, so you don't even really see what they look like in Solo.
Right. He's kind of like a typical Star Wars archetype. There's just generic, shady looking mother effer who spies in the background, gets hired for a price, and ultimately doesn't have a whole lot of character, but he's shifty. You can't trust him. Yeah. On what hover vehicle do the heroes make their clumsy escape?
Oh, it's he calls it Mint.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if that was supposed to be like a color or because that doesn't appear to be the make of the vehicle.
No, I think he means because he says you can sell in the black market. It's perfect condition.
Oh, it's
never
new,
used.
mint condition. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. I feel there's an X in it, and I feel it starts with an M.
Well, separate
one
words.
Of the words maybe it's 2 words.
True.
It's like a Mechlatrek. I don't know. What is it?
It's a Trexler Marauder.
Trexler Marauder. Yeah.
I liked it. I thought it was a cool rig.
It was a cool rig.
Yep.
I like the name too.
Yeah.
Trexler Marauder.
Master question for me.
Master question for you.
It's good YouTube content right here.
I know, I've got a couple, sorry. Which stormtrooper is instructed to send a technical crew to check out the transformer?
Which stormtrooper? I don't know. I do know that there are a couple of female stormtroopers in this episode, which is rare.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Captain Phasma.
No, it's not unheard of, but it's unusual.
Yes, it certainly is. TK-147.
Oh, okay.
Go with the old TK codes.
Right. Yeah. Who else was a TK?
There's lots of TKs on the Death Star.
Right. Okay.
TK421, TK421.
Yes.
Come in, TK421.
Anything else you wanted to say about this episode? There was a lot to talk about for sure. It was overall a good episode. I think maybe I was a little bit hard on it. I just think that it was the formula is kind of wearing me out, and I suspect it'll probably die with this episode, and we'll get into the meatier stuff next week, which I'm excited for. It also, and we've used this comparison before too, felt egregiously video gamey. Like, go here, get the thing, get out.
I was okay with that though.
Yeah,
I'm okay with the show being very video gamey personally.
Okay. Anything else?
As long as the story stays strong, and it certainly has been thus far. One other thing to mention, or two other things. I love the classroom.
Me too. Yeah.
That was just a really cool scene. The fact that it was where they did the big shootout in the last season.
Mm-hmm.
This is the big cantina. And then IG-11 in the town square.
IG-11 in the town square. No, I think I missed it.
I told you to look out for it. But yeah, no, I would have missed it the first time as well. I saw it still. In the middle of Navarro, in the town square, there's a statue of IG-11.
Oh, as like a hero?
Yeah. He's got a battle pose. Like, he's got like one leg up, and like he's got his like rifle in one arm. Because I mean, he sacrificed to save them all, and so
I guess, but it's so silly that you would erect a shrine to a non-sentient being. Like, I know it's Star Wars, but like there is something less heroic about a machine that was programmed to do the right thing.
That's true. However, in the same vein, it was programmed by Kuil, so maybe the statue should have been of him. But it would be a lot easier to get the parts to make an IG-11 statue.
Yes, fair enough. You could also just like take an old IG droid.
Well, the original Empire Strikes Back IG-88 did not move at all.
No, I know.
So he was bolted to the ground. Other than that, also the Mythosaur's skull shadow. That was kind of cool when they were down where the Aqualesh were raiding the old Mando caves, and then they had the Mythosaur's skull just to show that like they're all gone. The armorer either took their stuff or it's been all robbed anyway. So
the only other thing is the little meerkat thing that kind of befriends Cara Dune. Like, I don't know if that's supposed to be like her version of Baby Yoda. It's not cute. I just find it. No, I don't care.
It's not good practical effect.
It doesn't need to be there. It just didn't add anything to the episode, and it like makes its comeback in the end of the episode, and it doesn't do anything for me.
No, I would agree on that one for sure.
Okay, should we move on to the news?
News. We should. We covered some of it in the sense that we talked a little bit about the next episode and what's likely to come in that. And then also about the Boba Fett show. They also cast for that Jordan Bolger. He was from Peaky Blinders. Okay. I don't know who he is, but he's, I believe, the only one who's been cast aside from Tamara Morrison. The show's title, or like internally, is Buccaneer. So
cool.
That's a cool title. Yeah.
It is a cool title.
It won't be the title, but it's definitely a cool working title.
Yeah.
Speaking of working titles, they're doing casting for the Obi-Wan show.
Great. Okay.
And so they have working titles for some characters. The four main casting calls are for Riley / Eve. Okay. We don't really like it. It doesn't say specifically. Like both of them are the code name for some reason. This is a co-lead female. And they're any type of person of color in their 20s, and then the rumored favorite is rumored runner-up for Kira, Naomi Scott, who was Princess Jasmine in the most recent Aladdin.
Oh, cool. Okay, she's pretty good. She kind of steals the show in Aladdin, in fact. Okay, hang on a second. If one of this character's code names is Eve, is there a possibility they're going to do like a biblical framework in the Obi-Wan story? Like he's Adam, and like they're kind of like starting they're starting over in a completely desolate space.
Oh, Colin, you beat me to it.
Hey,
sir. You beat me to it. We'll go through all of these, and then we'll get to that as well. But yes, the working title for the show is Pilgrim. And what a pilgrim is, according to religious context, is someone who goes out on a spiritual journey to return more enlightened.
Yeah.
What's Obi-Wan going to do? Likely that. What does that tell me? This show is going to be Obi-Wan learning to be a Force ghost and likely learning to save Anakin's soul. He's going to go on a mission to learn how to be a Force ghost, and in that same vein, learn how to save Anakin so that Anakin is allowed to be a Force ghost after life as well, which ultimately he does become. And so that is my belief, that he is going to go and try and save Anakin in the same vein. That is what Qui-Gon instructs him as his path to becoming a Force ghost. And there will be that journey that he goes on, and these will be the characters that help him get there, in my belief.
I love that. That sounds awesome.
I think that would be so cool. It'd be a very, very fitting thing that to tie up so many of the loose ends, whereas some of the other rumored plots for the Obi-Wan show were going to be like, another Jedi is found, and he doesn't like the thought of Luke Skywalker and wants to kill him so that Vader doesn't come and find them. Or like people want like pirates to attack. I'm like, fuck that shit. That's creating new conflict. We already have a lot of mystery in this time period. Let's resolve and enrich the character with that 20-year time period that we already know, where there's a lot of question marks. So I hope that's the case. There's a character, Tia, who's also a female person of color in mid-30s. So because the same characteristics are required for Riley Eve and Tia, except one has to be approximately 5 years older than the other, it makes me think that there's potential they could be sisters.
Mm-hmm.
That would be logical. Bella is another character who's female, Latinx, in her 40s. And Harold, a supporting quirky male in his 20s to 30s.
Okay.
And so when you look at what the names of these mean, obviously Eve being kind of someone that the beginning of the journey, but also someone who suffered from temptation and ultimately gave in to the temptation of the dark side.
True.
So there's a lot of question marks as to who that could be. Tia means princess. So there could be a royal lineage or connection in that way. Maybe this is, I don't know what that could mean, but someone of high standing. Bella is a name that harkens to a follower of religion. And so in that regard, someone who is a devout member of a religion leads me to believe a guardian of the wills, or a Force user, or potentially a will of the Force. Herald is a term that means a war commander. And so that leads me to potentially believe that it's a reprogrammed, because it's a quirky character, an alien maybe, or maybe a droid that is a reprogrammed like battle droid or a fighting droid that's reprogrammed to not be so war driven.
I mean, there needs to be a droid.
Quirky. Yeah. Exactly. And so I thought it was really interesting, the fact that you drew the connection to the Bible and that there's clear biblical hints that are coming with this. It makes me very excited as to what this series could be, and that they're getting some of that casting stuff wrapped up means they're on track to get things going in the spring. Well,
and the idea that maybe Obi-Wan's goal on Tatooine was not always to be in complete isolation. Like maybe he did at a time have a sort of family that ultimately we know where that goes, because he ends up alone by the time of the beginning of A New Hope. But like, do we have room in Obi-Wan's story for another great love? It would be kind of nice if he had a little bit of family, although it's just another time where he loses love, which has happened to Obi-Wan again and again and again.
Yeah, and he's supposed to be older here, and so I don't really want a love story for Obi-Wan in that regard.
Experiences
and
so much
have more pain.
That's the thing. He experiences so much loss in his life, which it's going to happen no matter what.
It's going to likely be a lot of PTSD in this show anyway, and like there's going to be flashbacks to the Clone Wars, and so I am curious to know. I did also look up what Riley means, and it means valiant, and so that leads me to believe that maybe she won't be turned to the dark side the way Eve ultimately was, but at the same time, who knows? So that character it could be very interesting. Could be maybe a Padawan that's also on Tatooine that they like run into each other, and Obi-Wan's like, maybe I need to go find you a master somewhere so that you're not here.
Get out of my way.
And I get out of my way, and then like they can kind of learn from each other a little bit in the same, and maybe she dies as well. just because that's the way all these things go. Or maybe she's an Inquisitor and is undercover and has been working for Vader the entire time and almost gets close and who knows. So there's so many different things could be. I'm excited, and the way that these TV shows are coming out, it's just making the galaxy so big and connected and wonderful, and it's like they're doing what they did with Clone Wars and Rebels, but in live action and more plentiful. And with a way higher budget. So
sounds great.
I can't complain.
Yeah, sounds really good. And people have a good attitude about Disney's Star Wars TV series now. So maybe we'll have a good attitude about this, and we can kind of move on from some of the more complicated installments we've had in recent years.
Yeah, absolutely. Not much else in the news. I still haven't watched the holiday special yet. I'm still waiting probably a little bit to get a little closer to Christmas, but certainly will very soon. You said it was fun, but rather childish, but at the same time, that was what it was for. And so,
yeah. I mean, enough? I watched only half of it. I will finish it. And I didn't have like terribly high expectations. We had kind of heard ahead of time that like, it's actually a blast. I mean, it's no Pixar movie or frankly, it's no like the Lego movie. It's cute and pretty childish, which is fine. I had made a comment about how like Rey's voice acting is very, very miscast, that she sounds too Cockney. In watching more of it, I actually want to rescind that. The person they got to voice Rey does a really great job of kind of evoking a Daisy Ridleyness.
That's great.
She's the star. And the guy they got for Poe is really good too. Don't really see John Boyega at all in the Finn character, but it's okay too, because it's just like this quirky like highlight reel where she just kind of like bounces from Star Wars
time period to time period.
Yeah,
right?
Moment to moment. Like she goes to a bunch of like the greatest hits. And that's a fun premise for a holiday special, but we'll watch it this year in full, and we'll probably not watch it next year.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It won't
That
become
doesn't
one of your it won't be one that you revisit each holiday season like Charlie Brown.
No, and you know what? That's fine. But at the same, anything can be better than the first one, I can imagine. So.
Yes, that's probably true.
Speaking of Daisy Ridley, though, she did say that she thinks Rey's journey ended concretely, and she's really happy with the way it ended. She imagines Rey off enjoying herself in the forest and learning about the Force, and so that's great. And I think it's nice that she's still talking about Star Wars in a positive way. And I agree. Rey's journey is very complete. The galaxy's journey is not. And over time, Rey's importance will spike again, and I'm sure she'll be more inclined and more interested, along with John Boyega and Oscar Isaac, in 10, 15, 20, 30 years to come back to that. And there will be good reason to do so then. And that works for me.
Daisy Ridley's in a new movie. There's a trailer out this week, but I'm forgetting the title right now, but it looks kind of...
Chaos Walking.
Yeah, this like thriller movie with Tom Holland. It's kind of a two-hander between them. That's a really good casting for someone to be in a movie with her. Like they're kind of like contemporaries. They're the next generation of Hollywood as long as they're used properly and transitioned properly. He's a great actor. She's a great actor. I like them together. I'm not especially drawn to what I saw of the trailer, but I think people will be. And so as long as she remains relevant and working, she's going to find her footing for the right thing again.
I hope so. I think this one has been in production hell for a very long time.
Yeah.
I think she shot this like maybe right after The Last Jedi.
Oh, wow.
Like a while ago. And so I hope it's good for her sake, for her career. But it's, yeah, you're right. It's definitely the right kind of move. Tom Holland is a huge star, and they're definitely in that same next upswing. And everybody else, John Boyega in the new Steve McQueen movie.
Yeah,
I've heard that's like going to get Oscar contention for some things. And Oscar Isaac is Moon Knight, and Adam Driver is crushing John Oliver's chest with his smiles.
Right.
So, you know.
And John Boyega should be James Bond. You and I are at the front of the...
I like that. I am good on that, and I like the fact that he's even talked about it now, and that it's now out in the ether, and I think he's great. I want a young James Bond, and I think he'd be cool for it.
FN 218007.
Oh, nice, Colin.
Yeah.
Nice. I like that.
Anything else you want to talk about that's relevant?
No, I think that's everything.
Okay, just one important birthday. Happy birthday on Wednesday, November 25th to Sheila Fraser, who is the original Aunt Beru, who I've been unkind to on the podcast. She's part of the Star Wars family forever, and a happy birthday to her. If you have any thoughts on Chapter 4 of episode, that is episode 2.4, chapter, what is it, Chapter 11? Chapter 12? Chapter 12 of The Mandalorian, The Siege. Please send us a tweet at Recorder66 or email recorder66podcast@gmail.com. Rate and review on your preferred podcast app. This podcast is coming out a couple of days late, but we're going to try and get back on schedule in the coming days when episode 5 of season 2 comes out, and we'll be eager to discuss that when it happens. Hopefully some new and exciting things are going to happen in what sounds like it's going to be a longer episode. So that's coming up in the coming days. And until we are together again,
may the Force be with you.